Welcome to the Rigden Financial YouTube channel. My name is Mark Whaley, and today is March 25th, 2022. I'll be asking Layth Matthews, President and Lead Planner at Rigden Financial, about investments, interest rates, and other helpful topics to assist in your financial planning. A lot of people are thinking about buying a house these days, Layth, and one of the questions that people have are whether to buy a single house or a house with an additional suite for more income. And maybe they're predicting that the housing market might be going down soon. I was wondering if you could give us your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, it just so happens, Mark, that I have created an example that shows some of the differences between buying a house and buying a house with a suite. Now, the field of possibilities is unlimited because you don't know what price you might pay or so forth. But what I've decided to do is provide one example that could be modified to fit anybody's individual situation. The overall thing or decision or the essence of the difference is that the house with the suite is going to be more expensive. So you're making a bigger investment in the real estate. On the other hand, that risk is mitigated by the potential for income. So if you're in a place with low vacancy rates, which is much of Canada these days, there's not that much risk that your apartment is going to be empty. So the assumption is that you're going to be able to keep your suite rented. But anyway, I have prepared this little model that I put onto a worksheet, and let me share that with you, and I'll go over the assumptions and then show you what happens over a 5-year and 10-year progression. Now, this example is really fitting for somebody who's at fairly late in their career, perhaps, or just somebody who wants to quickly get to a lower pressure, lower overhead scenario. So I'll just mention that up front because it's really oriented towards getting the mortgage payments down quickly, but initiating the transaction. So here's the assumptions that I've made for this example of buying a home versus buying a home with a suite. So the first assumption is that we're making the minimum down payment. And the purchase price that I have for the home with the suite is $850,000 would be the purchase price, the initial one. And because we're putting down less than 20%, we would have to have a 25-year amortization, which means the time it would take to pay off the mortgage altogether. Now, if we're comparing this against a single family home purchase of $500,000, okay, so that's substantially less. Just keep that in mind. And for the purposes of another example, you could probably find a house with the same price that had a suite, but it would be of a lower quality. Like we're talking about a pretty nice house, depending on where you live. Mind you, in Victoria, $850,000 would get you a pretty nice garage. But in Prince George, $850,000 will get you a really nice house. So anyway, it depends on where you are, and if somebody wants a customized example, I'm happy to work with them. So anyway, the assumption is that we make the minimum down payment, which for $850,000 at this point is 7.505%. I haven't factored in CMHC fees into this example because it just gets too complicated. So that's your initial equity in the house that you buy. The property tax rate, I'm assuming, is 1.2%. That's normal, probably back east. Maybe some smaller communities tend to have higher property tax rates. In the West Coast, in Vancouver, and in Victoria, 1.2% is very high. Property taxes are closer to half of 1% around here. The mortgage rate that I'm assuming is 3%. Now, I would recommend a variable rate, or at least personally, that's what I would take right now, even though rates are going up. But right now you could get a variable rate at 2%. But this example provides an assumption that the mortgage rate is 3% across the board the whole time. Just keep that in mind. And the annual appreciation of the real estate, I'm assuming that it will be 3% for the entire period of this example. So you can, I mean, in recent years, better than 3%. The real estate market can pull back. It does occasionally. So, but I think 3% is not an aggressive assumption. And the other assumption is that this suite income you're going to get, whether it's a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, is going to be $1,200 a month. But all of these things in this example can be changed easily. That's why I have them in green. I can change that quickly. Mortgage rate requires me a little more work, but I can certainly do that. Let's go and see what happens. Let's see what it looks like at the initial purchase stage. So the initial purchase stage, your purchase price is $850,000 on the house with the suite and $500,000 on the single family house. Your initial mortgage amount is this. Now remember, I haven't put in CMHC fees, which puts in a whole other dimension, but the principles apply. It's still the same. So your property taxes are higher because you have a more valuable asset that you've acquired. And your mortgage payment on the house with the suite is going to be $37.39 a month. On the single family house, it's going to be $21.99. The mortgage interest per month, so you're just multiplying the interest rate times the mortgage amount outstanding. This is a very simplistic analysis. I'm just multiplying it times the total mortgage amount. Actually, it's going down slowly. But anyway, these are all conservative assumptions, but that's how much interest you're paying on this mortgage. Mind you, if you own a house with a suite, you will be able to write off some of that interest against your taxable income. So that's something to keep in mind. Monthly appreciation. Okay, look at this. The house with the suite appreciates at 3%. Appreciation is going to be about $2,000 a month. Single family, it's going to be a little more than half that. But you can see the net gain, monthly net gain, which is the rent that you earn. Remember that was $1,200 a month, plus appreciation minus the interest that you're paying, is coming out. You're actually gaining $1,350 a month. Here's the downside. The first mortgage payment in the first 5 years, you're paying, let's see, almost $700 more a month. So this, as I said before, is for somebody who's kind of at their higher stage of income, but who you're going to see where we can bring this payment down. But you're paying a little bit more per month, but you're also more of your mortgage payment, because you have a larger mortgage, more of it is going into paying down the mortgage. So the extra $700 a month, you could say, is just going straight against principal. So it's sort of an aggressive savings moment in this scenario, this person's life. So at the end of 5 years, well, you basically build up $59,000 of equity. So this is was E13 minus E14. So let's see, E13 minus E14. Yeah, that's just your down payment. Sorry, excuse me. This is at the beginning. So your down payment had to be larger here. So it's around 60,000 versus 35,000. So bigger down payment. Your initial equity difference is 24,000. So that's your extra investment initially. Okay. So now let's progress 5 years down the road. So we go to 5 years. So what I'm suggesting in this case, because this person, I'm assuming, is somebody who wants to get their payments down quickly. They're looking into maybe a retirement scenario, or they just want less pressure. Maybe one person is not going to be working or something like that. So here's what has happened. At the rate of appreciation, remember that's 3%. The more expensive house has appreciated to $985. The single family house has appreciated to $579. The mortgage amount has come down. These are the new mortgage amounts. here, this is the taxes. This is 1.2% of the property value. So the taxes have crept up a little bit. The mortgage payment, however, in this case, because we are doing a refinance at that point, and we're going to put us into a 30-year amortization. So we're getting our payment down fast. That's the this scenario, what the goal is of these clients. So the payment can come down quite a bit when we make this change. And that's because the mortgage amount has been paid down, and we're pushing back out to a 30-year amortization. So it's a much slower payoff progress scenario. So mortgage interest is now here it is. It's just basically the interest rate of 3% times the mortgage amount in both cases. And then here's your monthly appreciation. So same sort of thing. So anyway, what's interesting about this example, and you will be able to look at this after we're done, is that the payment scenario is almost equal. Let me see if I can move this for you just a little bit, and then you can see. So this is the after 5 years. So what happens is the payment, monthly mortgage payment plus property taxes minus rent. So this is your total cash flow comparison. Look what's happened here. If we do this scenario that I'm talking about, all of a sudden the mortgage payment net of rent is actually less than the single family house, because the rent has actually taken over a bigger percentage of the total costs of the house. So your forced savings becomes very similar, but your forced savings is really coming down because now we're going to this longer amortization scenario, lower costs, lower maintenance costs. But look what's happened to our home equity. Our home equity in both cases has gone up, but it's really gone up in the case of the more expensive house. So you have a differential. You've made $127,000. So you've gone from $24,000 to $127,000 of equity that you've accumulated by going with the house with a suite. And having a suite, the way to understand it is that having a suite is like a small business. It's not a freebie scenario. You do have to understand that it's going to be a little bit of work, but it is a very low maintenance kind of work. There are many different scenarios that can be worked out. Again, these assumptions are what goes into this example.
Great, that's super helpful. Thanks, Layth.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that when people have to make major financial decisions, it's helpful to work out a model like this, and we can change this around. I often will do it. I have a similar spreadsheet that I use for people trying to decide whether it's worthwhile to do a refinance and pay the penalty or not. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. You got to do the math.